Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I want to discuss the F1 career of Logan Sargeant. So I think we all kind of knew for a while that Logan Sargeant's time in F1 would be coming to an end at the end of 2024. But I think there was some surprise, definitely at certain points, that he was dropped when he was. But we'll get to that point eventually. But let's first take a look at how he got into F1. So he only had one season in Formula 2. He had 3 seasons in Formula 3, and that was partially because of funding issues. He didn't have the funds to go up to Formula 2 after his second year of F3, where he actually did pretty well. Or I guess, yeah, but anyway, so his one season F2, 2022, he finishes 4th in the championship, 148 points, 2 wins, 1 pole position, 3 podiums in the feature races, and 1 sprint podium as well. His teammate at Carlin was Liam Lawson, who finished 3rd with 149 points. Only a 1-point difference between the two, and of course, there's a decent chance that Liam Lawson will be confirmed for a RB seed in the coming weeks. So interesting to see that Lawson, of course, second season, and Sargeant, of course, that was his rookie season. So of course, a little bit surprising that Lawson would a little bit surprising that you would expect that Sargeant would have been the one to have a better career simply based on the fact that generally he had a bit more. He almost matched Lawson in his rookie season, is what I was trying to say. But that's something that's another discussion for a couple of years down the line, assuming Lawson does get that F1 seat. Now, his strength in F2 was seen to be his qualifying, his median pole gap in his 1 year of F2. So if you take all the qualifying sessions from F2 and look at his gap to pole position and what the median is from all the sessions that season, it was 0.407, which ranked 5th on the grid as a whole and 3rd amongst rookies. So it was behind Jack Doohan and Ayumu Iwasa. So again, not even the best rookie, despite the fact that he was the best ranked rookie, I believe, at the end of the season. And of course, Lawson, interestingly enough, was plus 0.59, so about 0.2 worse than Lawson over the course, or 0.2 worse than Sargeant over the course of the season. So a bit of a surprise there. So Sargeant was actually the better qualifier of the two during their season as teammates in F2. So of course, before his F2 season, he joined the Williams Driver Academy October of 2021. So this would have been just after his last season in Formula 3. And presumably this would have helped him, give him some of the funding necessary to race in F2. So of course, after that 1 year of F2, he was announced to be replacing Nicholas Latifi at Williams for 2023. And I remember sometime around the US Grand Prix, they provisionally announced him and said if he gets the required super license points, which were, for him, that would have been 5th or better, he will be our driver next year. So, first year of F1, 2023, not a great year. He finishes 21st in the championship, one point. Of course, no wins, no poles, no podiums. His teammate over his 2 years in F1, Alex Albon, 2023 finished 13th, 27 points. A very good year by Albon. So again, a bit of a pretty rough rookie season, but all the way through the season, Williams had been quite reassuring, saying, he's our driver, we're going to stick by him, we brought him in a year or two early, we're going to give him all the chances he has to succeed. And he was confirmed for 2024 very, very late in the season, very, very close to the end, and there's also a whole bunch of names that were kind of attached to the season as potential replacements, including Frederick Vesti, who finished 2nd in F2 in 2023, Mick Schumacher, and also Liam Lawson as well, given that he didn't have, there wasn't space for him at RB for 2024. So we get to 2024, and we'll go into all of these more advanced stats afterwards, but he improved, but not really enough. After round 16 of the championship, where he was eventually dropped, he finishes 20th in the championship as of when he was dropped. No points, no wins, no poles, no podiums. Again, his teammate is again Albon. Williams' car not quite as good as it was in 2023, so it's of course understandable that he wouldn't have as many points be expected to score as many points as he would have last year, but still, Albon was able to score 4 points during their time as teammates together. So, Williams, of course, over the summer they had signed Carlos Sainz for 2025 on July 29, 2024. So at this point, it was kind of unofficial that, Sargent's time in F1 was going to be coming to an end, assuming no one else picked him up. And given how there were so few spots available anyway at that point, Mercedes, Audi, RB, none of them really going to pick up Logan Sargeant. So that really already signaled the end to his time in F1. But he was dropped for Franco Colapinto on August 27th, 2024, after a big crash at the 2024 Dutch Grand Prix in free practice. And again, this is something that was unfortunately became to be characteristic of Logan Sargeant's time in F1. He was quite crash prone. And up here, I'm kind of in between the F2 and stuff and the F1 stuff. I've actually gotten the World Destructors Championship. So this is courtesy of Reddit. There's a fellow on Reddit who, basically keeps track of all the drivers' crashes over the course of the season. It has like estimated costs for different parts of the car, so the front wing, the engine, the chassis, that kind of thing. And in 2023, Logan Sargeant won the Destructors Championship, so he caused the most damage to his car at $4.3 million. 2024, he came second, or at least at the time of when he was dropped, he was second with $3 million. $3 million. So unfortunately, over his basically season and a half, very, very crash-prone driver, caused about $7.3 million in damage over that year and a half. And again, that's definitely something I think factored into him being dismissed early by Williams. Williams already knew they were dropping him at the end of the season, and they thought, we can't have this guy crashing every 3 or 4 races and putting massive issues into our update plan, making it that we can't have updates. Albon, of course, this year especially, has had some really big crashes. Australia, for example. The big difference between Sargeant and Albon is that Albon has the results to back up those crashes, once every 10 races or so. So 2023. So these are the advanced stats. So I wanted to kind of go into them to kind of show, show if he improved and if so, by how much. And something that I talked about a couple of times when I've talked about Sargeant is that his rookie season in terms of gap to Albon was actually very, very similar to Yuki Tsunoda's rookie season in terms of his gap to Pierre Gasly. But by the time he got to that second season, Tsunoda improved massively to the point where, for example, in qualifying, he was out-qualifying Gasly about once every 3 races or so. And again, just looking at qualifying, for example, the first stat I have on the board. So 2023, median qualifying gap, 0.545 seconds, so over half a second, pretty bad. And he was out-qualified 18-0. 2024, again, an improvement, but still a very big number. Median qualifying gap, a positive 0.304. So again, definitely in the wrong direction. And again, in terms of head-to-head qualifying with Albon, 0 and 14. So lost all 14 matchups. I know he did out-qualify Albon twice in the sprint qualifyings, which is actually quite interesting. So it suggests that for whatever reason, Albon's able to kind of get more out of the car as the weekend goes along, or perhaps Albon's taking less risk in the sprint qualifying session. Who knows? But yeah, definitely interesting to see that you have out of 3 sprint qualifyings this season, Sargeant actually out-qualified Albon in 2 of those, but over the course of 32 qualifying battles, he wasn't able to out-qualify Albon a single time. In terms of starting position delta, so this is the difference between himself and Albon, positive 5.19, so that means he's starting 5 positions back on the starting grid on average. 2024, again, it did improve to being only 3.14 positions back. Finishing position delta, 4.5 positions back 2023. This season, 2.67 positions back. So you can see these 3 stats here, they're all kind of an improvement over his rookie season. So that's at least a positive. And again, if they kept him for 2025, they'd probably improve again a little bit more. But I think that's kind of what the issue that Williams saw. They saw that he improved a little bit, but not really enough that they would be willing to keep him around for 2025. And I think it really brought real questions into, how high, how low is Logan Sargeant's ceiling, in terms of talent level, in terms of results in an F1 car. And just more stats, looking at the race model. So this is where I take all these different factors that are in the races. So, for example, points, finishing position, how much you improve on your finishing position. For example, when you kind of all combine these down into one number, and it comes out as like a z-score standard deviation. It's kind of a double standard deviation. So, for example, 2023, negative 3.61 was his score against L1. So that means that it's about 1.5 standard deviations. So that means it's outside of, it's kind of in the worst. I would say 80% or so. I don't know what the exact number is for that score, but that's kind of a rough idea of where it is. And then, for example, for here, let's see, for here 2024, negative 2.46. So again, an improvement, but still bigger than 1 standard deviation. So bigger than in the lower, let's say 63%, I would say, or no, the lowest 40, 30, 37% of F1 teammate scores, I would say, is kind of the best way to explain it. When you look at expected points too, 2023, Albon 113% of his expected points, Sargeant only 14%. For 2024, Albon 97%, so again, not quite as good as last year, but still, pretty close to 100. And for Sargeant, he hasn't scored any points, so of course that's a 0. When you look at the average on my power rankings, last year was a 19.0, which was 21st on a 20 driver grid, I must add. And 2024, 18.1, which is 20th. So again, still pretty poor. Although that being said, there is a caveat of the way that I did power rankings last year was a little bit different. So it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. His best ever result in F1, 2023 US Grand Prix, a 10th place finish. Of course, aided by the disqualifications of Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, because for excessive plank, where otherwise he would have finished in 12th and had no F1 points in his career. Best quality result, 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix, qualified 7th, but 1 position behind his teammate Alex Albon, who qualified in 6th. With that being said, relatively speaking, it was still a pretty good qualifying session for Sargeant. And again, it's just another attack on the very, very long list of American drivers in F1 who have not really had success. Rossi didn't really have the opportunity. Scott Speed kind of was just not very speedy. And again, you had drivers before that. You had like Michael Andretti as well in the 90s with McLaren. And it's just been a very, very spotty record, at least in modern F1. Of course, you do have championship. You have Phil Hill from the 50s. You have Mario Andretti as well from the earlier era of F1. But in terms of more recent history, very, very sparse. And generally, the American drivers have come in, even if they've come through the European ladder like Sargeant did, and generally done pretty well in Europe. 4th place in your rookie season in NF2 is a pretty good result. For whatever reason, for one reason or another, just hasn't worked out in F1. So again, I think if you told someone when he finished his F2 season that these would be his F1 results, I think you would be a little bit surprised. I do think his results are a little bit worse than expected, based on that 1 year of F2. But again, that's kind of the way it is. F1 is pretty cutthroat. If you don't perform, unless you're have lots of money or you're Lance Stroll, but even that's a bit harsh on Stroll, because I think at this point, he's one of the 20 best drivers, but I think obviously in terms of ceiling, definitely not really there. Future plans, I'm not really sure what the future holds for Logan Sargeant. Perhaps IndyCar, might go over to IndyCar, might be able to get himself a seat. I doubt he would have to go back to like the lower level of Indy NXT. I think he should be able to figure out a way to get an IndyCar seat for 2025. If he wants to stay in Europe, he could probably do endurance racing. He could probably do Formula E. I'm sure they would be happy to have an American driver on the grid as well. But again, that's something that Logan will have to figure out in the next coming days. I think one last comment as well on Logan's F1 career is I think it really felt that early on his early qualifying results were pretty good. Like I remember at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, his second weekend in F1, he had a really, really good time in Q1, but unfortunately it was just over track limits. And again, that meant he was knocked out and didn't have a time in qualifying. And I think those first 2 weekends, qualifying was actually very, very good, and kind of showed backed up these numbers up here. But it really felt like he just lost confidence at some point early on, and then was just never really able to push at 100%, never really comfortable in the car. And I guess similar to Mick Schumacher as well. He's scared about causing a crash, so not pushing as much perhaps, and then of course that leads to further. It's just kind of a negative cycle that continues and continues. So I think that was something as well that kind of negatively affected Logan during his time in F1. So there you go. There's the F1 career of Logan Sargeant. Definitely a pretty short career, and I think I'm going to have to do a couple more of these at the end of the season. We have a pretty good idea of who those drivers are going to be, but again, at this point in time, not yet 100% sure. But yeah, so with Sargeant being dropped early, I can start this series a bit early. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out. But anyway, I'll be back again in a couple of days' time. Goodbye.